Hey again, I decided to do one more quick video just because it's a complicated topic, but I know that in Maya, and whether or not you stay in Maya or you move on to integrating a game workflow, that there's certain fundamentals that are just essential to understand. And I was like, there's which how's the most effective way to do this? And um, So I got with me a couple friends. As you can see in my Photoshop document, we got some Rage Faces, Creeper, and Pikachu. And we're going to go over a quick primer to laying out UVs and texturing and how these materials are created and their effects. A lot of people were talking about how do they get rid of that plasticky look with some of the default materials that Maya provides. Hopefully this video right here will help piece some things together, so once you're further down the line in your workflow and in your education, you can see how they make a little more sense. Hue primitive that I created, and every 3D mesh has a UV or a set of UVs even. Um, a UV is essentially if I took dun, 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 dun. So if I took that cube and I flattened it out like a piece of paper, I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I cut with a pair of scissors along all these edges and I laid it out, it'd look something like this. Or however I'd organize it, but it'd be flat. It'd be a 2D image. And this is a very important concept because once we start texturing our meshes with like custom images and maps, we are going to be using underneath the Windows UV editor, and this right here is a visual representation of what that cube is going to look like when it's laid out. So these are the default UV values, and we have the ability to go in and modify them as we see fit. So we can lay them out as soon as you find a workflow that's best for you and how you want to lay them out depending on the nature of the mesh. And there's just a million of considerations, but we see that we can lay it out exactly like that example right there. So once you have your mesh laid out in whichever way that you want to lay it out, you can do a snapshot. So we select the UVs, polygon, UV snapshot. The snapshot window is going to say, okay, what resolution do you want your UV snapshot to be? Now, because we're working into what's considered a 0, 1 space, this main square right here, it's always got to be a power of 2. So I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do 2048. 2048. I'm just going to make this. Sure, let's just do a JPEG, whatever. And then I'm going to toss it on my desktop. Call it snap. Okay, so now inside of Photoshop, with some of with my team of illustrious friends, we can place the UV snapshot on there, and we see that we have an outline of exactly what we saw inside of our 3D package. Now I'm just going to do a quick invert, if I can remember the shortcut, Control I. It's a smart object, so first I got to rasterize it. Rasterize, Control I. There we go. And then we are going to do a multiply, so it knocks out all the white and we keep any darker values. So now we can see everything that we're working with. So if we put Pikachu in that one, our creeper there, face right there, happy face, rage face, and our troll face, like that. And then we do a file, export. Oh, let's take off that. Save as. So we're just going to save this as a JPEG just for demonstration purposes. Do first texture. Okay, so now when we go into Maya, and we select this, let's add a new material. Let's just add a basic Lambert. We'll call, always rename it, my new Lambert 01. So underneath the color, or your diffuse, hit this little checkered icon and it's going to let you create or place your own texture underneath this file node right here. So click that and then you have your file 1 and you can just call this my friend's texture and then image name. So right here on this folder we got to point it to exactly where it is. So we'll go into first texture JPEG. What? There we go. So now that it's on there, as we showed that it has an input right here because the checker pattern is removed, we still don't see it. So we would need to enable textures by clicking on this right here. So we click on it, we see that we have our rage faces. Uh-oh, this guy's a little upside down. There's a couple different, and at this point it just becomes crazy because we can be like, okay, well we can go back into our Photoshop and we can flip that texture around, or we can go into our UV editor and we can take that shell and we can rotate it. So as you see, it's very, very pliable. There's lots of different ways that you can go about it, either inside the 3D app, outside the 3D app. But once you import it, that texture, that JPEG, is whatever it is. We can modify the UVs in here, but we can't modify the texture. So we could even do something like, well, we don't want that guy at all. We just want another creeper. Or maybe we want all creepers. Like so. So then we're just stacking. And there are situations where you do not want overlapping, and there are situations where overlapping is just fine. That is the name of the game. So it's up to us to play around with these, break them, and figure out why they broke, and then create a better pipeline from that. So this is essentially a really quick primer into the meshes, their geometry, how it affects your UVs, how to lay out your UVs, create snapshots, adjust textures inside of Photoshop, export, importing them, and placing them on their respective, I guess, materials. Because even though we laid everything out just for this, we can take a sphere, and those textures are not specific to this mesh, it's specific to the material. So we can take this and we can say we want to add existing my new Lambert. We can see that that same material is on there, but because it's a different mesh, different topology, and subsequently a new UV layout, it is completely different. So just a lot of back and forth, a lot of trial and error of figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and overall trying to get closer to what we consider our vision. All right, hopefully you guys thought this was pretty handy, not too long-winded. Keep up the good work. See ya.